The forgotten legend emerges. The galaxy had long forgotten the old stories. The younger civilizations mocked them, calling them nothing more than human fantasies. Among these legends one stood above all, a tale whispered in the darkest corners of the universe. It was the story of the Sentinel, a guardian of immense power built in humanity's greatest age. Some claimed it was an indestructible war machine. Others believed it was an artificial intelligence so advanced that it could predict battles before they even began. But no one had ever seen it. Most of the Galactic Council believed it was just another human myth, a tale made to scare those who doubted Earth's strength. They were wrong. A lost sector, a hidden secret, deep in a forgotten part of space. An Empire scouting ship drifted through the remains of an old battlefield. The crew was made up of Velu, a species known for their greed and love for scavenging lost technology. They were smaller than humans, with dark insect-like eyes and thin bony fingers, perfect for picking apart old machines. Captain Vectel, the leader of the crew, smirked as his ship scanners picked up a strange energy reading. Another useless wreck, one of his officers muttered, staring at the readings. No, Veal said, narrowing his eyes. This one is still active. That was impossible. This battlefield was ancient, dating back to the Great War, a time when humans had fought against unknown enemies and nearly vanished from the stars. No ship, no machine should still be running after all these centuries. The forbidden outpost, guided by the energy signal, the Valer ship entered a vast asteroid field. Between the floating rocks they found something massive buried under layers of space dust and blah. It was a station, or at least what was left of one. Its structure was massive, larger than most planetary defense bases. The metal walls were covered in ancient markings, some still glowing faintly. This is human technology, Vectel whispered in disbelief. Impossible. Another crew member argued. Humans abandoned this sector centuries ago. The station shouldn't exist, but it did, and it was still alive. Vial's greed took over. If this was truly an untouched human war relic, the Empire would pay him a fortune for it. Ignoring the warnings of his crew, he ordered a landing. The silent awakening inside the station was dark. Frozen in time, the halls were filled with dust, and the air smelled of metal and decay. Strange screens flickered on the walls, displaying symbols in old human languages. Leal's team spread out, searching for anything valuable. Most of the station seemed dead, except for one chamber. It was a circular room, massive and filled with cables running along the floor. In the center stood a large metallic structure, shaped like an armored giant. It was covered in battle scars, but its core still pulsed with a dim blue light. One of the Valkyrie reached out to touch it. The moment their fingers brushed against the metal, the ground shook violently. A deep hum filled the air. Lights flickered on the walls. The dust that had settled for centuries suddenly lifted, as if the entire station had just taken a breath. Vectel stumbled back, his eyes widening in shock. "What did you do?" he shouted, but no one answered, because at that moment the blue light in the center of the machine's chest grew brighter. And then, for the first time in centuries, a voice echoed through the room. "Humanity's Guardian reactivation protocol engage." Fear takes hold. The Valky crew froze in terror. It wasn't just a station. It wasn't just some forgotten human relic. This was the Sentinel, and it had just awakened. The legend was no longer a story. It was real. And soon the entire galaxy would know the truth. The discovery. Vale's heart pounded in his chest. The words that echoed through the station sent a cold wave of fear through the Valkyrie crew. Humanity's Guardian reactivation protocol engaged. For a long moment, nobody moved. The machine in front of them, the one they had mocked as a human fairy tale, was waking up. The dim blue glow in its core was growing brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. The metal around it trembled, dust shaking loose as ancient mechanisms whirred back to life. One of the Valer officers, Track, whispered in disbelief. This is not possible." Vale's mind raced. If this really was the Sentinel, it meant two things. First, the humans had built something far greater than anyone had ever imagined. Second, if this machine was waking up, then something terrible was coming. A bad decision. The Velu were scavengers, not warriors, but their nature was to take what they found no matter. The risk. VL shook off his fear. If he could claim this machine and sell its secrets, he would be wealthy beyond imagination. Secure it, he ordered. Shut it down if you have to. We are taking this treasure home. Track hesitated. Captain, I don't think. Do it, Vecto barked. The Valerie scrambled, pulling out scanning devices, trying to override the machine's control systems. They hacked into the station's terminals, hoping to deactivate whatever was powering the Sentinel. They should have left, because the moment their devices connected, the Sentinel reacted. The Guardian awakens. A deep mechanical growl vibrated through the chamber. The Valerie screens flickered, with strange human code symbols flashing too fast to read. Then a second voice, cold, ancient, and powerful, echoed through the hall's. Unauthorized presence detected. Defensive protocols initiated. The Sentinel moved. The blue glow turned into a piercing white light. The metal giant's fingers twitched, and its massive form shifted slightly, as if testing its joints after a long slumber. Then its head turned, and for the first time in countless years, the Sentinel looked at them. The Velar froze. Track took a slow step backward. Captain, we need to go. But it was too late. A sudden pulse of energy exploded from the Sentinel's core, knocking the Valkyrie crew off their feet. Their scanners short-circuited, sparks flying as their systems went dark. The doors leading to the outside corridor slammed shut, sealing them inside the chamber. Veal scrambled to his feet, panic finally setting in. Get us out of here. The Sentinel took one step forward, and the entire station shook. The warning. Then the machine spoke again. Its voice was deep, mechanical, and filled with authority. Humanity's Guardian reactivated. Final war protocol. Engage. The Velar had no idea what it meant, but then the station's external transmitters came online, and across the galaxy, in every corner of known space, on human worlds, alien colonies, and hidden outposts, a single message was broadcasted from the long-dead station. A message in ancient Terran language, a warning that no one had heard in centuries, a message that would change everything. The annihilators are returning. Prepare for war. The awakening. The Sentinel stood motionless for a moment, its imposing frame towering over the stunned Valerie. The silence that followed its chilling message only heightened the crew fear. They weren't warriors. They weren't even supposed to be here. The Valkyrie were scavengers, opportunists, and now they were trapped with something that shouldn't exist. Shut it down now, VL shouted, but Track, frozen with fear, could barely move his hand, trembled over his control panel as the Sentinel's piercing gaze locked onto the Valkyrie. Its glowing eyes swept over them one by one, as if analyzing their very essence. No, we need to leave. We shouldn't have touched it. Track finally yelled. Enough, Vectel snarled, pulling out his own device. If you won't do it, I'll. Before he could finish, the Sentinel's voice echoed through the chamber again, calm yet full of authority. Unregistered life forms detected. Threat level minimal. The crew exchanged terrified glances. Minimal threat. Was it sparing them then? With a low hum, the Sentinel's core pulsed again. Streams of ancient data flooded the walls as the station came to life. Screens lit up, flashing images of long-forgotten battles, humans fighting against alien forces so advanced that even the Valkyrie couldn't recognize their ships. The images vanished as quickly as they appeared, leaving behind only the Sentinel's steady gaze. Primary protocol engaged, it said. Destination set. Proceeding to Terran Central Command. The Vel's hearts sank. Destination set. It was leaving the station. No, we can't let it go, Vectel yelled. It's human tech. It's priceless. If it leads, we lose everything. Track grabbed Vale's arm, his voice desperate. Do you hear yourself? This isn't just some relic. It's alive. We can't control it. Before the argument could continue, a deep mechanical clank shook the station. The Sentinel took a step forward, its massive foot sending vibrations through the floor. Then another step. The Velk scrambled back, pressing themselves against the walls as the Sentinel moved with purpose toward the sealed exit. As it approached the door, its glowing core intensified, and a beam of light shot out, slicing through the ancient metal. The thick, reinforced Doors that had kept the station sealed for centuries fell apart, as if they were made of paper. Course confirmed, the Sentinel stated, preparing for departure. The Velari, left in the wreckage of their own greed, could only watch as the ancient machine moved toward its unknown destination. But one thing was clear: wherever it was going, it was about to change the fate of the galaxy forever. The machines responded one by one. They stirred from their endless sleep. Their sleek alien forms began to glow with an eerie light. Weapons that had not been fired in centuries powered up, charging with energy that hummed through the void. Their single unified purpose slowly returned to their vast cold minds: eradicate all sentient life. Back at the Galactic Council, the atmosphere in the council chambers had changed. Once a place of fierce debates and political maneuvering, it was now filled with quiet urgency. After the Sentinel's warning, the council's focus had shifted. The arguments about human secrets and old myths had ended. Now everyone had the same fear. Reports had started trickling in. Small colonies on the edge of the galaxy were going dark. Communication relays were being destroyed. Trade routes were disappearing without explanation. At first it was attributed to pirate activity or natural disasters, but then the images began to surface. A lone drone sent from a mining outpost on the galactic fringe captured the moment before its destruction. The footage showed a sleek black machine emerging from the shadows of a gas giant. Its edges glinted like obsidian, and its shape was unlike any known ship. It moved with precision, targeting the outpost defenses and dismantling them with frightening efficiency. It wasn't human. It wasn't Falky. It wasn't from any known species. And then the image cut to static. In the council chamber, the delegates reviewed the footage in silence. The room's usual noise, bickering, arguing, trading insults, was gone. The only sound was the faint hum of the display. Admiral Graves stood at the center, his arms crossed. He stared at the image, his jaw tight. "That's one of them," he said finally. One of the alien diplomats, a tall, pale Feroxan, whispered one of what. Graves turned toward them. One of the annihilators. The room erupted into quiet. Panicked delegates whispered to one another, their voices urgent but hushed. They had never seen these machines before, but the name alone was enough to send fear down their spines. "I thought they were destroyed. Someone said they were supposed to be gone." Another delegate shouted. The Kanar and elders spoke again, their voice steady. "They were never destroyed. We convinced ourselves they were, but now we must face reality. The annihilators are returning." The council members looked to one another, uncertain. Some began calling for immediate military action. Others demanded more information, but Graves held up a hand, silencing them. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "This isn't just humanity's problem. The Sentinel was built to fight them, yes, but if the annihilators are awake, they won't stop with humans. They'll come for all of us." The room was silent. Graves stepped forward, his voice echoing in the chamber. The Sentinel sent a message. It didn't just warn humanity, it warned everyone. "That means we have a chance to prepare, to rally our fleets, to stand together." The delegates exchanged weary glances. Cooperation wasn't something the council was known for, but now, with a shared enemy on the horizon, the divisions between species seemed less important. Grades nodded. "You don't have to trust humanity, but you'd better trust this. If we don't fight together, we won't survive what's coming." For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council began to truly unite. The gears of war started turning. Fleets were mobilized, defenses were fortified, and old rivalries were set aside. The galaxy braced itself, knowing that something far worse than any internal conflict was on its way. In the darkness beyond the galactic rim, the annihilators continued to awaken, their numbers growing. The countdown to war had begun. Humanity's response on the edge of human space, deep within the armored corridors of Earth's largest military installation. The call had come. It had arrived as a faint signal at first, crackling through the long-forgotten human frequencies. When the ancient words were decoded, every officer and strategist in the room froze. "The annihilators are returning. Prepare for war." The Sentinel's message was clear. Humanity had faced them once, long before. The galaxy knew their name. It had taken everything the humans had: their ingenuity, their resilience, and their unmatched will to survive to push back the Annihilators the first time, and they had barely succeeded for centuries. The United Terran Defense Fleet UTF had remained vigilant even as the rest of the galaxy dismissed the old legends. Humanity hadn't forgotten what the Annihilators were capable of. They'd spent generations preparing for this day. Despite the mockery of other species who believed them paranoid were deluded, and now as the warning rang out across every human colony, they knew their time had come again. Activate the old defense protocols, Admiral Chen ordered, her voice steady but grave. Bring the orbital platforms online, power up the planetary shields, and recall every deep space patrol. We are officially on war footing. Officers scrambled to relay her commands. Across human space fleets began to assemble. Massive warships, sleek and bristling with advanced weaponry, emerged from their hidden docks. Military outposts on every colony world started preparing their defenses, while evacuation plans for civilians were quietly put into motion. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to adapt and overcome. In the centuries since their last war with the Annihilators, they had developed new technologies and tactics, waiting for the day they might need them again. Advanced AI systems coordinated fleet movements, while experimental weapons, some based on reverse-engineered analog tech, were brought out of secure storage on a desolate moon at the edge of human territory. An enormous facility that had been silent for generations came to life. Deep underground, behind layers of reinforced alloy and energy barriers, a chamber opened. Inside was a command center that hadn't been used since the end of the last Annihilator War. Now it flickered to life as the old protocols activated. This is Commander Donovan, a voice announced across human channels. We have confirmed the Sentinels warning. The Annihilators are real and they are returning. All Terran forces are to prepare for full-scale engagement. This is not a drill. The time we feared has arrived, and we will face it together. We are humanity, and we will not fall. Donovan's words carried through every colony, every ship, and every military base. Soldiers and civilians alike felt a sense of both dread and resolve. They knew what was at stake. This wasn't just a fight for humanity survival. If they failed, the galaxy would fall with them. As the UD's largest warships formed up around Earth, smaller fleets began moving out to strategic points across human territory. Stations that had been dormant for years were reactivated, stocked with supplies, and armed to the teeth. Outposts on remote was prepared to hold the line, knowing they might be the first to encounter the enemy. Back on Earth, the old Terran Central Command, the very heart of humanity's military coordination, buzzed with activity. Strategists reviewed ancient battle logs, looking for any insights into how the Annihilators fought. Engineers worked around the clock, retrofit in older ships with new weapons. The Sentinels' reawakening had not only confirmed humanity's worst fears, but had also given them the rallying cry they needed. Admiral Chen, a junior officer, called out, "The Sentinel has transmitted additional data. It's updating us on the Annihilators' known tactics and weaknesses." Shen nodded sharply. "Good. Make that information available to every fleet commander. If we have any advantage, we'll use it." The atmosphere in the command center was tense but focused. There was no room for panic, no time for doubt. Humanity had fought impossible odds before, and they had survived. This time they were stronger, more prepared, and more united. Chen turned to her senior staff. "We don't know how many are out there or when they'll strike, but we know what they want. They want to wipe us out. They want to finish what they started. We will not let them. Make sure every officer and every soldier understands this. We are the front line. If we fall, the galaxy falls. But we won't fall." Across human space, a grim determination settled over the population. This was their fight, one they had been preparing for, whether they admitted it or not. For generations, the galaxy may have mocked their old legends, but now those legends were the only hope of survival. As the fleet moved into position and defenses hardened, one unifying thought echoed through every human world, every colony, and every soldier's mind: humanity had been underestimated before. Never again. The war begins. The galaxy waited in tense silence, its collective breath held as the first signs of the Annihilator fleet emerged from the void. They didn't arrive in waves or with a grand announcement. Instead, they seemed to materialize out of nothing, their sleek black forms cutting through the darkness with an eerie mechanical precision. The outermost Terran defense stations were the first to encounter them at Outpost Vega Prime. Sensors screamed as hundreds of unidentified ships appeared on the edge of the system. The station's commander, a hardened veteran named Colonel Sarah Nolan, watched the readings with a sinking feeling in her gut. "Are those one of her officers?" asked their voice. Trembling, Nolan nodded grimly. "They are the Annihilators." Her orders were swift and sharp. "Prepare all defensive batteries. Send a warning to fleet command. No one retreats. We hold the line." Within minutes, the station's massive rail guns and plasma turrets hung to life. The first wave of annals moved with surgical precision, targeting the station's outer defenses. Explosions rippled through the blackness of space, and the battle was on. Humanity's united front across human-controlled space. Similar encounters were unfolding. The Nyers hit fast and hard, targeting critical installations, supply lines, and strategic outposts. But unlike the ancient war that had nearly wiped out humanity, this time the turn were ready. Fleets of heavily armed dreadnoughts, destroyers, and carriers moved into position, blocking key systems and creating choke points on the surface of heavily fortified planets. Planetary shields flared to life, and anti-orbital weapon platforms tracked every enemy movement. Admiral Chen coordinated the defense from the newly reactivated Terran Central Command on a massive holographic map. She watched the galaxy's front lines shift in real time. "Status report," she barked. A junior officer responded immediately. "First and Second Fleets are engaging the enemy near Proxima Centauri. Outer colonies are evacuating. Defense platforms are holding for now." Chen's jaw tightened. "Hold the lines as long as possible. We need time to bring the remaining fleets online." "The Sentinel. Where is it now?" "The Sentinel is en route to Earth, Admiral. ETA is 18 hours. Chen nodded. "We need that machine operational. Until then, we buy time. Every second counts." The Sentinels return. While human forces scrambled to mount their defense, the Sentinel continued its journey. The ancient war machine, silent and powerful, moved through space at a speed no other vessel could match. Its core pulsed with energy, its internal systems analyzing the incoming annihilator forces somewhere deep within its programming. The Sentinel remembered the last war. It remembered the devastation the annihilators had wrought, and it remembered the sacrifices humanity had made to stop them. This time, it was determined not to let history repeat itself. When it finally reached Earth, the Sentinel's arrival was like a beacon of hope. It docked with the Terran Central Command's main orbital platform, linking its vast stores of knowledge and tactical data with humanity's current forces. Advanced AI systems processed battle plans in milliseconds, identifying weaknesses in the annihilator fleets and suggesting countermeasures. Admiral Chen issued new orders based on the Sentinel's analysis. Squadrons of fighters targeted specific annihilator command ships, exploiting gaps in their formations. Fleets formed defensive perimeters around key systems, forcing the enemy to spread out and commit resources to multiple fronts. The turning point, despite the annihilator initial dominance, humanity's coordinated response began to turn the tide. The massive, heavily armored dreadnoughts, supported by the Sentinel's advanced targeting systems, dealt devastating blows to the enemy's vanguard. High-energy rail gun slugs tore through annihilator holes, while new prototype weapons based on recovered annihilator tech disrupted their communication networks. But the cost was high. Each victory came with heavy losses. Outer colonies were destroyed or abandoned. Entire fleets were crippled. The galaxy's other species, watching from the sidelines, began to realize the full scale of the threat. Some reluctantly offered aid, sending small fleets or supplies, and still humanity fought on. The first major victory at the Battle of the Aldrin Rift, human forces achieved their first decisive victory, with the Sentinel directing the battle. The combined fleet of Terran dreadnoughts and stealth fraughts lured a large annihilator force into a narrow pass there the humans use experimental mines and EMP charges to disable the annihilator central command ship. When it fell, the remaining annihilator ships lost cohesion. They'd fought on, but without their centralized intelligence, their tactics became predictable. The Terran fleet pushed them back, destroying nearly two-thirds of their forces and capturing valuable enemy tech. The victory at Aldrin Rift sent a clear message: humanity was no longer the same vulnerable civilization the annihilators had faced centuries ago. They were stronger, smarter, and more determined. A war without end, but the war was far from over. For every battle won, new waves of annihilators emerged. They adapted, evolving their strategies and increasing their numbers. Humanity's fleets were stretched thin, and the cost in lives and resources was staggering. The Sentinel continued to play a crucial role, analyzing enemy behavior and predicting their next moves. Its presence turned the tide of many engagements, but even it was not infallible. The annihilators, relentless and tireless, seemed to learn as quickly as humanity could fight back. The war was now a battle of endurance. Both sides knew that victory would not come quickly. The galaxy was forever changed. Its once fragmented civilizations now united against a common enemy, and as the humans looked to the stars, they knew one thing: their survival depended on their ability to stand together, to adapt, and to never give up. For as long as the annihilators existed, humanity would fight